So who's one player from every championship club who's got a point to prove going into next season? Let's talk about it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I like to do this one each year. I picked out one player from every championship club who I think for one reason or another has a bit of a point to prove next season, whether it's proving himself at this level, if he's just coming off the back of a disappointing season, or they have to justify a big price tag. Let me know down below who you're looking forward to seeing in action next season. If you're going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If we get it 350, that would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. Barnsley, Devante Cole. Now this transfer raised a few eyebrows when it went through. Cole's record in the EFL up until this point isn't exactly stellar. He's coming off the back of a decent season with Motherwell, but has it all to prove that he is good enough to cut it at this level. He's also got pretty big boots to fill in Daryl DK, who will no longer be there next season. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that one turns out. Birmingham's Sam Cosgrove, he made a £2 million move over in January and is still yet to hit the back of the net for Birmingham. Now, to be fair to Cosgrove, the majority of his minutes last season came on as a late substitute, so he didn't really get all too much of a chance to really show the Birmingham fans what he's capable of doing. But this season he'll want to justify that price tag. He's got a fair bit of competition for that striker spot. You know, you look at the likes of Djukovic, Hogan, Chuksaniki, who's come in who can play that position as well. So yeah, Cosgrove's got it all to prove next season. Blackburn Rovers' Ben Brereton. He's coming off the back of his best goal scoring season with Blackburn to date with 7 goals, and I think that he's going to want to take his game up another level. He's just coming off the back of a fantastic Copa America campaign with Chile, and with Adam Armstrong potentially departing Blackburn this summer, the main sort of goal scoring onus could fall upon his shoulders next season, and he's going to want to sort of thrive under that pressure. Blackpool, I'm going to go with Chris Maxwell. I think that he's going to be desperate to prove that he's still good enough to be playing at this level. He's just coming off the back of an excellent individual season with Blackpool, which saw him keep 22 league clean sheets. He also won their Player of the Season award after how well he did. But his last season in the Championship with Preston didn't exactly go to plan. You know, he had a bit of a disaster. He dropped a few clangers that season. His last game at this level, he was sent off against Ipswich. So he'll be wanting to prove to himself more than anything that he's still good enough to be playing in the Championship. Bournemouth, Chris Mentham. Now, last season he'll be looking to put behind him after that playoff semi-final second leg where he was sent off against Brentford. Ultimately that showed to be a bit of a turning point in that match. Obviously Bournemouth went on to lose and were knocked out subsequently to Brentford, who were then promoted. He's just coming off the back of a decent Euro 2020 campaign with Wales where he started 3 out of their 4 matches. He'll just be looking to put that last season behind him and get on with his football this season. Bristol City, Casey Palmer. Now Bristol City really struggled for creativity last season. In fact, they had the few starts of shots in the league with only 496 attempts on goal, which was by far and away the lowest in the Championship. This is something that Bristol City over this pre-season and going into next season are really going to have to work on. If there's one player who's capable of picking out a key pass or breaking the lines of the opposition, then that's Casey Palmer. He showed that in glimpses he can provide that spark. It's down to him now to force his way into that team. Cardiff, I'm going to go with Josh Murphy. Murphy was a little bit in and out of that Cardiff squad last season, but he's 26 years old now. This should be the point where he's really coming into his prime, and he should be showing, you know, week in, week out what he's capable of doing. There also might be a few more opportunities for Murphy to get a bit more game time next season, you know, with Junior Hoylett no longer being there, Shea Yojo and Harry Wilson now both returning from their loan spells as well. He made the move over to Cardiff in 2018 for a fee of around about £11 million, so he's still really wanting to justify that price tag. Coventry, I'm going to go with Martin Waghorn. Despite his brace on the final day for Derby, last season was pretty poor by his standards. He only scored 5 goals. He'll be hoping that the change of scenery and the change of philosophy and systems at Coventry will help him rediscover that form. And to be honest, you know, at one point Waghorn really was a top Championship player. You know, when he was at Ipswich and when he first made that move over to Derby, he's got a wicked left foot on him, and you can't help but think with some of those other options that he may be playing up front with at Coventry, they may be able to unlock that potential once again. Derby, Kamil Jozwiak. Now Derby don't exactly have the most amount of players for me to pick from here, but Jozwiak was a player who made the move over to Derby last season. And we're still really waiting to see the full package of what he can actually bring to this Derby side. He only scored the 1 goal for them last season. I know that it was in, you know, pretty tough circumstances given how their season went in general, but Derby are another team who are in desperate need of creativity. They only scored 18 goals from open play last season, and if someone can make the difference in terms of beating a man and creating those chances in and around the box, that that could be Joswiak. Fulham, Marek Rodak. Now, I have been a huge fan of Rodak throughout the years, ever since he had that loan spell at Rotherham where I thought he was absolutely terrific. In Fulham's promotion season, he was pivotal to that when he managed to claim that #1 shirt. He was absolutely brilliant in the running to the end of that season. But despite that, he lost his place as their #1 in the Premier League, with Areola coming in on loan from PSG. With Areola no longer being there though, Rodak will once again want to prove himself to be Fulham's #1, and on his day probably is one of the best in the Championship. Huddersfield, Jordan Rhodes. Now last season Jordan Rhodes had a full season at Huddersfield. He scored 40 goals. If he even manages to score a quarter of that this season for Huddersfield, then this transfer has been a success for me. He's had a frustrating 4 years at Sheffield Wednesday, and more than anything, he'll be wanting to prove that he is still good enough for Championship football. Hull City, Malik Wilks. Now, after Hull's relegation from the Championship, the majority of the players that are still at the club now, I think, have a point to prove. You know, they want to show that they are good enough to cut it at the Championship this time round, and their confidence should be riding high after absolutely storming League One last season. Wilks is a player who probably excites me the most. He scored 19 goals last season. We saw small glimpses of him in the Championship last time for Hull. It didn't really work out for him at Barnsley. This season could be the making of him in the Championship. Luton Town, I'm going to go with Harry Cornick. After the departure of their top scorer, James Collins, more of the goal-scoring onus may fall upon Cornick's shoulders going into next season. Now, Cornick, I think, is quite a useful player. I think that his movement and sort of runs off the ball, the way he's able to stretch the opposition, make those runs in behind, I think he's really effective with, but by no means did he have his best goal-scoring season last time round. He only scored 1 Championship goal. With Collins no longer being there, Cornick, you'd expect, would be needing to chip in with a few more goals next time round, so he'll have that point to prove that he can go ahead and do that. Middlesbrough, for the time being, I'm going to say Chuba Akpom. I'm not sure what the future's going to hold for Akpom. He made the move over last summer for a fee of around about 2.75 million, and he started out fairly well with some promising performances, but pretty quickly his season fizzled out and he was never really able to rediscover his form. With a couple of Borough's sort of main attackers in recent years now departing, the likes of the British Somblongers and the Ashley Fletchers, maybe Akpom is going to be looked at as that main guy next season, but it's still quite up in the air. Millwall, Benik Afobe. My God, has he got a point to prove next season. It's crazy to think that just a few years ago, Stoke spent £12 million on Afobe. He's had 2 loan spells out since then. This is now his 3rd one at the Den. Now, Millwall were in desperate need of a goal scorer last season, weren't they? We all thought that could be Troy Parrott, but that move never really worked out in the end. This time round, they'll be looking for Benik Afobe to chip in with the goals, and more than anything, he just needs to rediscover his goal scoring touch at this level. Nottingham Forest, Brennan Johnson. I think that everything looks set up for Brennan Johnson to absolutely storm the Championship next season. He's just coming off the back of an unbelievable loan spell with Lincoln in League One, which saw him get 18 goal contributions throughout the season, and he's now got this chance at Forest to prove himself at a higher level. There's already been Premier League interest in him. Johnson is exactly the sort of player that they were lacking last season. Peterborough, it's got to be Jack Marriott. His last season in a Peterborough shirt, he scored 33 goals and was probably one of the most sought after strikers in the whole of the EFL. 3 sort of injury hit seasons at Derby later, and it's fair to say that his stock has fallen off quite considerably. Marriott's got that point to prove now that he can still be that guy, and if he manages to stay fit, this move to Peterborough may not be a bad move for him. Preston North End, Izzy Brown. Izzy Brown has been sent out on 7 different loan spells throughout his time at Chelsea, but now he really has the chance to settle down somewhere after signing a permanent contract with Preston North End. He really struggled last time at Sheffield Wednesday, but clearly he has buckets of, you know, technical ability about him and still potential at a fairly young age. If Preston manage to unlock that potential next season and Izzy Brown really gets his head down, which I think he will because he does seriously have this point to prove, this is a bit of a crossroads for his career now, then who knows, Preston could have got a bargain. QPR Chris Willock. Now, towards the end of last season, I think that Willock really established himself as one of QPR's star men, and he'll be looking to take that form with him into next season, and along with a lot of the QPR squad, has a bit of a point to prove that they can cut it in and around the top of the Championship, and that the end of last season wasn't just a bit of a flash in the pan. I think that his free role playing just behind the striker, sort of alongside Cher, suits him really well, and he really could be a player to watch out for next season. Reading John Swift. With Michael Elise's impending departure this summer, John Swift will be more important than ever for Reading next season, provided that he can stay fit. He obviously missed the majority of last season with an injury, but when he is fully fit and on his game in that number 10 position, he's probably one of the best in the league. The season before, when he was consistently playing week in, week out for Reading, his creative stats were right up there as one of the best in the league. And you'd think that he'd only go on and be more important to this Reading side if Elise is to go. Sheffield United, Ryan Brewster. The Blades spent a whopping £23.5 million on Ryan Brewster last summer, and he's still yet to score for the club. I do think that their drop back down to the Championship could be a good thing for Brewster's career. I mean, he's already proved himself at Championship level. He was absolutely prolific from his half season with Swansea, and it's quite similar to sort of the Dom Solanke story at Bournemouth. You know, the player who was struggling to cut it at Premier League level after moving over from Liverpool for a big fee. He drops down to the Championship and has a season where he absolutely smashes it. I feel like that could happen for Brewster this season. Stoke City, Ben Wilmot. After the sale of Nathan Collins to Burnley, Ben Wilmot has come in from Watford to be that obvious replacement. Obviously, he's got quite big shoes to fill after how good Nathan Collins was, but Ben Wilmot, more than anything, will have a point to prove to Watford that they were wrong for letting him go. You know, he didn't really get all too much of a chance for Watford last season. He only made 14 league starts for them. He should see this now as a really good chance to properly kickstart his career. Swansea City, Liam Walsh. This is a deal which has just gone through, and I think that he has quite the point to prove going into next season with Swansea. Now, with Swansea's sort of track record with developing young players like Walsh is, you know, he's only 23. This could be a bit of a bargain as they picked him up on a free after his contract had expired with Bristol City. In the 4 years he was there, he only made 22 appearances for them, had one season out on loan at Coventry. This season now at Swansea really could be the making of him. West Brom, Carlan Grant. Now, at the time, the £15 million that West Brom spent on Carlan Grant seemed like decent business. You know, I thought it was a good deal at the time. He was just coming off the back of a prolific season with Huddersfield in the Championship as probably one of the best forwards in the league that season. But so far, things just haven't clicked for him at West Brom, have they? He's only scored the one goal for the Baggies. But once again, quite similar to what we were saying about Ryan Brewster, the drop back down to the Championship may help him really kickstart his career at West Brom. He's clearly good enough to cut it at this level, and when you think he's going to be playing alongside the sort of, you know, Grady Dingans and Callum Robinson, he should certainly have the service next season. But guys, there we have it. There was one player from every Championship club who I think has a point to prove going into next season. Do you agree with my picks? Let me know down below. Who else would you pick out from your clubs who you think has a bit of a point to prove heading into next season? If you did go on to enjoy though, make sure to leave a like and do stick around for a bit of regular Championship content. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.